we're going through a bit of a drought at the moment, Hollywood puts out hundreds of films in a normal year, ranging from polished Marvel blockbusters to experimental low-budget horrors and everything in between. But unfortunately for the majority of these films, there's only so much attention and hype to go around, and the truth of the matter is that most of it just gets sucked up by dominant brands like Star Wars, DC, Mission Impossible and Jurassic World. As a result, there are usually very few passengers on board the hype train for Joe Arthouse's latest quirky drama, or Jodie Gorehound's upcoming micro-budget slasher. On the plus side, this means that we often get movies that come out of nowhere and smack us in the face with their brilliance. Films that were underhyped, or weren't hyped whatsoever, but managed to overcome that lack of attention, break out into the mainstream, and show everyone how amazing they are. From terrific stories to inventive action sequences to heartwarming messages, these movies blew us all away, and due to various reasons, we never even saw them coming. I am Kirsten from World Culture, and these are 10 underhyped movies that blew everyone away. Number 10, you're next. With only a handful of small horror movies under his belt, none of which made a particularly big splash, few people were eagerly anticipating director Adam Wingard's next film project, You're Next, yet another small horror movie. From the trailers, we were told to expect a pretty generic slasher, only with the usual crowd of drunk, idiotic teenagers aged up to wealthy adults. It looked fun, sure, but it's an insanely crowded and done-to-death genre. It didn't look that special. In the end, though, You're Next turned out to be Wingard's breakout hit, and to this day, it's commonly regarded as his best film, with some competition from The Guest. Those underwhelming trailers were in fact masking some pretty cool plot twists, as well as a sharp dark comedy undercurrent and some surprisingly strong characters. While the movie wasn't a $100 million grossing box office smash, it attracted a ton of positive word of mouth in the months following its release, introducing more and more people to what is an inventive and deliciously gory horror gem. In fact, Your Next was so well received that Wingard instantly became a name to watch within the film fan community, and it's raised his credibility so much that it set him on the path to landing the Godzilla vs. Kong directing gig. Not too shabby. Number 9, The Gift. While there was certainly a bit of mild interest surrounding The Gift in the run-up to its release, primarily because it was directorial debut of actor Joel Edgerton, that interest was limited to dedicated movie fan circles, the people who actually knew who Edgerton was. On a mainstream broad level, there was zero actual hype. At the time, production company Blumhouse wasn't the respected and well-known name it is today, and furthermore, getting comedy regular Jason Bateman to lead a gritty thriller seemed like an odd casting choice that didn't do The Gift any favours. But when the film came out, the conversation changed immediately. Bateman's performance was singled out as being particularly impressive, as was the unnerving atmosphere and tone created by directorial newcomer Edgerton. Packed with the emotion and shocking twist, the movie just worked, and nobody expected it to be as great as it was. Even in a crowded summer season, surrounded by the likes of Mission Impossible and Ant-Man, The Gift was on the lips of movie fans everywhere, and its incredible 92% Rotten Tomatoes score tells you all you need to know. Number 8, Game Night. 2018 comedy Game Night had the backing of a major studio, Warner Brothers, and as a result it had a big marketing push that put it on the radar. But there's a massive difference between awareness and hype. While people definitely knew that Game Night was coming, it was hard for anyone to be excited about it considering that the directors of the atrocious Vacation reboot were at the helm. It also didn't help that the film was being dropped in February, a month that, while not as big a dumping ground as January, still seemed like a bit of an odd date for a major comedy, perhaps a signal that Warner Brothers didn't have much faith in the project. Ultimately though, the film itself was terrific, with Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams' adorable on-screen romance, Jesse Plemons' absolute winner of a supporting performance, and the fact that the film works as both a hilarious comedy and an engaging mystery thriller. It's honestly hard to fault Game Night for what it is. Anyone who was unsure about Daly and Goldstein's abilities was instantly silenced, and in a way, the fact that Vacation was so bad almost helped Game Night. With the hype being so low, the surprisingly high quality of the film was all the more pleasant. Number 7, Kingsman: The Secret Service. Ever since Layer Cake and Stardust cemented his directorial talent, Matthew Vaughn projects have always been something to look forward to, and yet Kingsman: The Secret Service barely registered on the hype meter. The movie launched in January here in the UK, which, as we mentioned, isn't typically a month for standout projects. Avengers: Age of Ultron and Jurassic World were just around the corner too, and the excitement for those movies was at its peak. Two huge blockbusters that were sucking up all the buzz. Kingsman didn't stand a chance. It definitely looked cool, like something fresh within the comic book movie space, but honestly, did anyone expect one of the best movies of the year, one of the most iconic fight scenes of all time, and for the flick to be a massive mainstream success, grossing over $400 million worldwide? No, but that's exactly what happened. As Kingsman began its global rollout, you could just feel the energy surrounding it starting to grow. Colin Firth's cool as a cucumber Harry Hart, Taron Egerton's foul-mouthed and funny Eggsy, the cheeky humour, the insane violence, and the goddamn church scene. The movie wasn't just good, it was unbelievably good. And right from its opening weekend, it was clear that we'd all just witnessed something rather special. The Secret Service was the definition of a surprise hit, creating such a solid foundation on which to build a franchise that there's still a lot of excitement about this property today, even though sequel The Golden Circle was a major misstep. Number 6. Chronicle. Not only was Chronicle severely underhyped, but the fact that it's a found footage movie actually turned some people off it altogether. After the success of Paranormal Activity, the movie space became littered with low-budget, shaky cam imitators, and Chronicle, despite not being about ghosts or haunted houses or anything like that, had the whiff of a wannabe cool kid jumping on the bandwagon of a popular gimmick. It was a victim of an overcrowded genre. People were tired of found footage movies back then, and with its non-existent marketing and lack of star power, the buzz for Chronicle just wasn't there. But in true underdog fashion, the lack of awareness surrounding the movie didn't stop it from breaking out into the mainstream consciousness. It earned rave reviews, and compared to its small budget, it was a box office smash. And furthermore, it even managed to prove the found footage naysayers wrong. The gimmicky and overused style was employed not for cheap jump scares, but as a way to reinforce character. Protagonist Andrew has an abusive father and a dying mother. He's lonely and afraid, and so he starts recording his life so that he has something to latch onto. With an engaging script, relatable characters, and some amazing effects work for such a small budget, Chronicle turned out brilliantly, even though it did have a lot going against it. There was even talk of a sequel at one point, but it sadly never materialized. Number 5. Snowpiercer. While director Bong Joon-ho's Oscar success with Parasite means that his future projects will never be on a list like this again, things were different back in 2013. The Host and Mother, his 2006 and 2009 films, had their fans, sure, but they were cult classics at best, at least with the Western audiences, and their exposure was limited by the fact that they weren't in English language. As a result, a lot of people simply just didn't know how talented Joon-ho was in lead up to his 2013 film Snowpiercer. Despite starring Captain America, it launched rather quietly, but as people started to see it, word spread about how fantastic it truly was. It cannot be disputed that the decision to make an English language film like Snowpiercer helped Bong Joon-ho's career. It certainly raised the awareness surrounding Snowpiercer. Some people just don't like watching subtitle material, because it compelled more casual audiences to give it a go. But language aside, Snowpiercer is just a great movie. A dystopian tale set aboard the titular train, the film managed to make the well-worn end-of-the-world genre feel refreshing, with brutal fight scenes, distinct characters, and an always topical class warfare story, with the wealthy and the poor being confined to different areas. An indie film that defied its lack of hype, Snowpiercer appeared on dozens of the best of the year lists and proved to be a massive hit on VOD. It made Bong Joon-ho a name to watch not just with hardcore film fans, but with film fans in general. Number 4. Claws. Netflix is notoriously terrible at advertising its new releases. Unless you're Stranger Things or a movie starring a big Hollywood actor, it's going to be very difficult to get a significant amount of attention, and overall, the company puts out so much content that a lot of great stuff simply just gets buried. And this is precisely what happened to Claws. It was dropped on Netflix in November 2019 with little fanfare, while also being overshadowed by big hitters like The Irishman and The Crown Series 3. Under normal circumstances, it would have been forgotten for good. Just look at all the other things Netflix released in November 2019 and see how many you've heard of. But Claws' high quality ultimately shone through. As Christmas drew closer and closer, more people got in the mood for a festive movie, and Claws' star began to grow. Not only was it watched by 40 million households in the first month, but this tiny animated movie that nobody had heard of eventually beat out Toy Story 4 and Frozen 2 for several end-of-year prizes, including winning Best Animated Feature at the BAFTAs and the Annie Awards. It's difficult for a movie to swoop in at the last minute and take down Disney like that, but Claws pulled it off. Charming, deliciously Christmassy, and with a touching message about the importance of being kind. It was one of the best Netflix originals of 2019 and the best animated movie of the year, full stop. Number 3. John Wick. When we say that nobody cared about John Wick in the run-up to its release, we really truly mean it. Aging movie star doing a generic action thriller is almost its own genre at this point, and to be frank, the vast majority of them, like Taken 2, Taken 3, The Gunman, Stolen, please tell us when to stop, they are rubbish. So when it was announced that Keanu Reeves would be joining the not-so-esteemed ranks, you could almost hear the world groan. Even the most hardcore Reeves fans will still admit his acting game leaves a lot to be desired, and all things considered, John Wick seemed film destined for one place and one place only, the bargain bin. But by God, were we wrong. We were so wrong. Not just a good action flick, but a top-tier action flick. John Wick actually put effort into crafting some outstanding punchy action sequences, and smartly, it paired these with a simple yet effective story. If you didn't tear up when the dog died, then you're an emotionless robot. Meaning that the quieter scenes were just as engaging to sit through as the gunfights. With 2 equally excellent sequels under its belt, a decent video game on store shelves, and a TV series on the horizon, John Wick is one of the most remarkable franchise success stories of the century. Absolutely nobody saw this coming. Number 2, District 9. Pretty much everything about District 9 inspired skepticism rather than confidence. Its first-time director, its no-name cast, its unusual combination of documentary-style interviews and full-on sci-fi action. It looked risky, it looked strange, and it certainly didn't look like it carried mass market appeal. Released in the middle of August, the movie was also positioned at the tail end of packed summer slate that include the likes of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Star Trek, and Terminator Salvation. Despite Peter Jackson's name being splashed across the posters, there was simply nothing that the $30 million budgeted District 9 could do to rival its blockbuster cousins in the hype department. On the plus side, being positioned as the underdog gives you something that your blockbuster cousins simply cannot conjure up: the element of surprise. And on the whole, surprising is the perfect way to describe District 9. This small and odd-looking sci-fi thriller was an utter revelation, with magnificent AAA-level special effects, interesting world-building, visceral action, and biting social commentary presented in a digestible and entertaining way. Not only was it an explosive and pacey popcorn flick, it was also a big awards player, a combination of appeals that very few movies are capable of pulling off. While director Neil Blomkamp's follow-up work was nowhere near as good as District 9, this is the movie that launched his career, and to this day he's still known as the guy who made District 9. It's his masterpiece, and probably always will be. Number 1, Get Out. Like with The Gift, there was certainly a lot of pre-release interest surrounding Get Out, mainly due to who was directing it. The interest wasn't really hype in the traditional sense though, it was more like curiosity. The pairing of comedian Jordan Peele with a Blumhouse horror thriller was intriguing, no doubt, as was the movie's insanely trippy trailer, but Peele's previous film script Keanu was weak, and considering that the fact that Get Out was his first stab at horror, people weren't exactly going crazy with excitement over the movie and its prospects. But then it landed. A huge cultural movement as well as a terrific film in its own right. Get Out absolutely dominated the conversation for a full year after its release, culminating with a historic Best Original Screenplay Oscar win for Peele in 2018. The quality of the movie, as well as the way that it resonated with fans, critics, and industry professionals, was unprecedented, especially considering that Blumhouse, while known for putting out entertaining and popular movies, wasn't really a studio you went to for Oscar-caliber writing and directing. Get Out not only turned Peele from a funny man into a serious filmmaker, it also sealed Blumhouse's status as the unrivaled A-grade for all things horror and thriller coming out of Hollywood. Not bad for a movie that few had high expectations for. And there we go, 10 underhyped movies that blew everyone away. Know of any other underhyped movies that everybody ended up loving? Let us know down in the comments section below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. But for now, I have been Kirsten Ria from What Culture, and I will see you in the next video.